Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Blizzard Comedy Profiles, the second in 2 weeks. This is the most prolific we've ever been. Amazing. By this rate, we'll have done like 5 by the end of the year. It'd be great. So today we are joined by the magnificent Stuart Dunlop, who you may have seen on our last Broadcast Avalanche live stream. How are you doing today, Stuart?
I am doing very, very well, Johnny. How are you?
I'm doing good. I've also just noticed someone in the chat has redeemed the hydrate reward, so I'm gonna go do that now. You wish everyone a good hydration. Thank you very much, Safi Best Lasagna. I'm actually. I was saying before, I've been having problems with my wisdom tooth. I can't remember the technical term for it, but it's basically a tooth infection, but in your wisdom tooth, so like under the gum. So it's much more of a pain to deal with. So I've only really been drinking water, which is good. Like I need to lay off fizzy drinks anyway. But now it's so painful to drink anything. It's painful enough drinking water that. It's kind of done wonders for my diet, except it hasn't because I can only eat soft foods, and pizza is a soft food. So
everything's a soft food if you put the right setting on the blender.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
No, absolutely fair point. We are. I've already lost the flow of what I was talking about. I asked how you were, and then I immediately forgot to listen to it because someone redeemed something in the chat. But you're doing good, yeah.
Keep interrupting chat. Keep making this complete non sequitur of an hour.
Absolutely, yeah.
I am absolutely fine. It's been a very hectic couple of weeks for me in personal and in activities that I'm doing. But other than that, it's been fun. It's been a really, really fun couple of weeks. Absolutely. And thank you again for inviting me on the Avalanche. That was an absolute blast.
Absolutely, we will have you on again soon, no doubt. From December onwards, I'll start booking for next summer and stuff as well, assuming we're still carrying it on then, which I think I will. There's still plenty of people seem to like watching it, and it's a nice thing to do. I'd always wanted to do this. We are going to talk about you in a minute, I promise. It was one of those formats that I'd wanted to do for a while, but doing it live would have required a lot more equipment because you'd have to have you have to have a much more complicated mic setup, and then the staging of it, you need a bigger venue for it. So it's one of the things that I'd always had the vague idea of doing, and then when everything shut down, I was like, actually, you could just do this using Zoom, and that actually solves a lot of the issues I was having in my head with it. So
the live shows that I run, I ran as part of the alternative Cobra meeting team.
Yes.
But now it's on hiatus, but we are very interested in going back and doing more, live broadcast streams and potentially some live stuff in Sheffield because, the majority of us are based in Sheffield and we are they know enough venues that are potentially interested, and it's really just a case of when and how, and but that's definitely something I want to do is get the streams going again as well, because I think you never know when the plug's going to be pulled, and and you're also it's a very different and very fun way of doing it. I found
it's a lot more accessible to people, both performers and audience.
Exactly.
Well. That's really cool. We'll be excited to hear some more about that. Just to start us off, a kind of broad question, because I know you've come compared to other people on the show. I think you've come to comedy from quite a different background to the rest of us. I'm saying the rest of us as if we're excluding you. I don't mean like that. But I just mean you're. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were interested in kind of performance first and foremost before specifically comedy. Is that fair to say, or?
I mean, I really got started my work in just generally doing theatre at university, and musical theatre particularly, and it was just something that happened, really. I just fell in love with the idea of performing, and then from some escape of the imagination, I found improv, and that was sort of my launching pad to coming to doing public performances, because I lived in Berlin for a year, and I sort of just made myself a regular, kind of forced my way in to being a regular at a comedy club in Berlin called the Comedy Cafe Berlin, which if anyone ever goes to Berlin, I always say go to the Comedy Cafe Berlin. A lot of it is English language improv, and it is genuinely fantastic, and the people there are just tremendous, great people, really funny, really lovely, sweet people. And the tagline of the cafe's improv studio is simply "This theatre kills fascists," which is even better.
Oh,
you can
that
get
is
it
amazing.
on a T-shirt there.
Yeah,
and I want to go back to get a T-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely get a T-shirt. That sounds amazing. It's fascinating that because I don't know. This is probably just like a bit of the xenophobia in me, but just like there's kind of an ingrained sense of just like I think sort of British comedians in general tend to feel that British comedy only works in Britain. And I think especially when you come to when you come to places that English isn't their first language, even if it's a popular one. So I'm always surprised at just how many people found their start in comedy, like how many English acts found their start in comedy in places like Berlin, and I think Sweden's another one that's got quite a big English stand-up scene. Because I think Tom B, one of our team captains, I think I
was going to mention, he's
yeah,
mentioned it before. He knows CCB, he knows the same stomping rounds I had, so you know.
That's good because as I was saying it, I was like, was it Berlin or was it somewhere else? But no, I feel like it was around that area.
We've exchanged those pleasantries of, you know, this person. Oh yeah, I performed with this person. Oh cool. Like, we've done that a couple of times. So that's amazing. And playing Guess Who, playing like a weird version of Guess Who with Berlin-based from all over the world.
That's so weird because I mean, like in like, particularly in like the north of England, like most comedians do know each other, or at least like if you don't know someone, chances are everyone you know will know them.
Yeah.
So it must be even weirder when that extends to international as well. That must be a little bit of a shocking moment.
It's very interesting, and it is something that I would love to push in as well, because when we did the live shows, I might as well explain that. So over the pandemic, a group of comedians, myself, Daniel Innes, Kurt Lambert, and Ollie Clark, most of which are based in Sheffield, and I befriended when I'd come to the UK, back to the UK to you know, work here and do some comedy on the side. We got talking, and over the pandemic said, why don't we just do something on Facebook to just sort of entertain people and maybe do some charity plugs at the same time. And one of the people I was able to get on for one of the shows we did was a improviser called Carl Clancy, who is Irish, and was just willing to take part in, you know, with an audience that didn't know him. And Carl is just a wonderful example of, you know, a Berlin improviser, in that he's just so game for anything, so off the wall, and just a joy to work with. And if you're watching, Carl, come to the UK, pretend you're a citizen, you'll be fine. You'll get away with it with your Irish accent.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we have a very lapsed immigration policy at the minute. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he's Irish. They'll just assume he's there to work the railroads.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's all fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so taking it back a bit. Because I'm really interested in this journey. So, like, just as a kind of So I'm going to ask a question more from like a kind of connoisseur or consumer of performance. First of all, when did you? What are your earliest memories of like enjoying watching comedy? Like whether that's stand up or theatre or like sitcom and sketch, anything like that.
It was kind of a mix of the stand-up and the sitcom. It was your very typical, you know, what are projected as classic British sitcoms.
Yeah,
you know, some of them I still hold really deep in my heart. Blackadder.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore.
It still holds up quite well, which is a shame because a lot of the people involved in it have not.
Well, I feel like that with a lot. Like the last few years, especially, I've definitely come to terms with that whole death of the author concept of I really admire the comedy, and I really look up to the writing, and I'm inspired by the writing, but the person can go fuck themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's
it. Like the best example of that is Father Ted and the IT Crowd, which I absolutely loved growing up, and Fawlty Towers as well, and things like that. The very, very traditional sitcoms. But I've always taken like the idea of like, don't endorse the people anymore, but the way that the shows were structured is what I've already absorbed. So I'm taking that and repurposing it, you know, for today. That's kind of the sitcom style of thing that I really enjoyed. And then when it came to stand-up, it was kind of a mishmash. It was kind of a mishmash of everyone, the more observational comedians that were big in the mid-2000s. And,
you kind of like Michael McIntyre's, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was a Michael McIntyre fan as a kid. And like Rod Gilbert. And then also the more
He's on
surreal
tour at the
stuff.
minute, I think, actually.
Yeah, no, I do want to go see him if I can.
Yeah, same actually.
I do like Rob Gilbert.
Yeah.
But then I found myself enjoying the more surreal stuff as a teen. Like in terms of stand-up, I discovered Eddie Izzard, and that really leapt out at me. Like, what is this? Like, there's no punchline here, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
And that's what I fell in love with. And then in the surreal sitcom area, you had the Mighty Boosh, and as I mentioned, the IT Crowd, and you know, the more kind of like slightly off the rails, Garth Marenghi, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of like your
just like anything that Rich Diawadi was involved in at all. Just...
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's Richard Diawadi all the way, or Rich Fulcher.
Yeah. Rich Fulcher,
or Matt Berry, but there's a good class. There's a good alumnus from those
Toast
shows.
of London's an interesting one actually, because it's kind of got that same surrealism to it, but it also is formatted in a much more classic way than a lot of those shows.
Yeah,
like,
one thing I wasn't sure what to make of it when I first
it's weird.
heard about it, and then I realized I really like the fact that it's so surreal. Like it felt. I've always been a fan of like cartoons growing up. Like I've always loved classic cartoons. I still watch a few now, even with the concept, because I love animation as a medium, because I can't draw, so it's just a case of this is
I'm exactly
this is
the same.
This is sorcery to me. How the hell do you do this? So, I always kind of loved the comedy that sort of had that cartoonish quality to it, where they if even with it being live action, you could still do goofy, ridiculous things that make no sense, and you could get away with it. And that always kind of jumped at me as something that I enjoyed. And then just to keep rallying off names like the sci-fi stuff like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Red Dwarf,
obviously.
the more kind of sci-fi also grabbed me a stage, you know what I mean? So it was all the things that were just kind of like really imaginative comedy and stuff that jumped out at you as like, just bizarre thoughts that just became it made sense in its own world, if you get me. And that's what really grabbed me in terms of influence, just something that made sense in its own world and was just unleashed on people to just decode for themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was really huge in the 2000s, certainly. Because I think we grew up in around the same time, or like certainly in terms of like the kind of culture we're absorbing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's like Eddie Izzard's a really interesting one, because like a lot of these interviews I've done, Eddie Izzard's a name that comes up a lot alongside a lot of the kind of contemporary observational comedians at the time, like Michael McIntyre's, Lee Evans, Jack D, that kind of thing. And it's kind of interesting how Eddie Izzard didn't really do anything throughout most of the 2000s, but it's still a lot of people sort of discovered her that like just. I can't think of any other comedians whose shows have had such a long-lasting impact that people go back and watch them now and still relate to them. Like, if you go and watch Michael McIntyre's first DVD, it's still fine. It's still great. Like, I still get some enjoyment out of it. But I can't imagine anyone who hadn't already heard of him going back and being blown away by it.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing. I feel like the thing that I always look for a lot of the time, not look for, but the thing that sticks with me is, I guess the cliche term is timeless comedy, but
that's it.
I guess it's a weird thing to say that, because there's certain stuff that like is definitely belongs contextually in its time, but you can still find great nuggets of humor in it. You know what I mean? Stuff where the references are very 90s, very 2000s, very 80s, whatever. But
Space is great, huge for that.
Yeah, like and things like that just jump. Space is a really good example. For a minute, I wasn't sure. I thought you said space. I'm like,
oh yeah,
that okay.
It's a very weird thing to just say. Yeah.
It crossed. Just sailed over me, but like space. But no, but the idea of it being a like something that, even if it's rooted in a particular period in history or a particular mood, the way it's written will still give you a laugh. You'll still be able to find something in there that you can relate to, or just find entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah, Space is a really good example of that, because there's a lot of references that I probably have missed in the amount of times I've watched it, because I sort of I was born right in the middle of the 90s, so like while some of the kind of the more notorious references I'd be aware of, a lot of the small ones I might have missed, but it does that's never impacted my enjoyment of it. Whereas if you go back and watch like some old satire, like even stuff like old Spitting Image, I find very difficult to watch, and like old there's an impressionist called Rory Bremner who like was in the first couple of series of Mock the Week. I remember finding one of his videos in the charity shop and getting it, and just not getting any of it because it was politically before my time. And like, I'm sure this is really well, and it didn't help that the video was like clearly very old and struggling to be played. At that point, but
well, I mean, it is an interesting thing because I also grew up with a lot of American material, cartoons predominantly. You know, I was a huge Simpsons fan, huge Futurama fan, still am, still consider Futurama one of the best adult animated cartoons out there.
I could probably count on one hand how many bad Futurama episodes there are. Like that's...
yeah, exactly. Like I'm going through my partner at the moment because she'd never seen it, and she has outright told me this is great. Like she nags me now. When are we watching Futurama again? Tell me when we're watching it. But things like that, and even in the obscure path, Mystery Science Theater 3000, I discovered in uni, and that like is the most niche thing that you could possibly find. And half the jokes in that I don't get because I'm British. Basically, it's such a unique American niche show, but it's so ridiculous and so unique that I just find it like engaging, and I laugh at a good chunk of it, which is good because it's an hour and a half long. Every episode's an hour and a half long because they literally watch a film, the thing that jumps from that is like they have 600 gags in an episode, so I can still get 300 laughs in an episode, which is something that I love about that show and the style of comedy it had.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly in animation, that's the thing, because it is so much more carefully. I mean, not that like live action comedy shows aren't well constructed, but I think because of the nature of how animation's made, it's something that I think Aardman films are really good at. Like you're saying, just how like every single frame has been very carefully thought out in pretty much every frame there is a gag going on, whether that's part of a
there's something
wider
you miss
one,
every time.
Or if there's not a gag, like an important plot point, there's like not really any filler time in it at all.
I don't think my childhood was complete without Wallace and Gromit. It was just like
which is another one that's got that kind of timeless quality to it. Like even though it's very clearly dated in, like it's obviously set in a particular time period, but it's still.
Yeah, but it's weird because it was made in the late 80s and through to the 90s and then into the 2000s.
It feels older than it is.
Yeah, there's a very almost like 60s, 70s quality to the design. Yeah, it's going for the old, Northern Village kind of aesthetic, which just works for it. It just doesn't feel dated because of the fact that it's in a particular time period.
I guess it's because it's intentionally dated rather than trying to.
It's quaint.
Rather than trying to
old
grab
English
what's
town.
modern. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can't picture Wallace doing like. It's why the advertisements kind of wind me up because it's always like Wallace with like a smartphone or something like that, or like a Eon energy boiler, and it's like just give him an old boiler, just give him a boiler that you get in the 60s that pollutes half the fucking
absolutely
continent.
You can't get them anymore thanks to the woke brigade. Just
exactly. Wallace and Gromit goes
cancelling climate change.
Oh dear,
fantastic.
They got to Wallace and Gromit, of course they did. All vegan cheese now.
Fucking hell. Oh god. I'm glad Aardman haven't taken that route. That would have been...
Oh yeah, if they took
like in some ways I kind of want to see a parallel universe where the creators of Aardman have just gone like full on fucking boomer with it, but
I mean the thing about Aardman is they've always seemed like they're aware of the times, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm, obviously projecting and I don't know the people there. There could be massive turfs in there, right?
Yeah.
But like, they've always presented this image of wanting just to entertain, which is always my go-to.
Which I think is what like family and a lot of kids comedy does very well. Or at least like the good stuff does anyway.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Yeah, that I'm not surprised by any of the names you dropped there. I think that's really very, very clearly shaped you. So
you know me too well. You know my turn well, friend.
Absolutely. So just jumping forward to when you first got involved with performance yourself, not necessarily comedy. So you said, was the theatre you did at uni, was that kind of your first?
I did a little at school and sort of local events, and I always enjoyed it. I never knew
kind of
really
school
what
plays or just like
school plays. I did a couple of. I was in the Scouts, so I did their gang show they did every 2 years in my local area. I did stuff like that, and it was when I started just getting bigger things to do in those, and 9 times out of 10, and I'm not bragging on this, but 9 times out of 10 when I was given something individual to do, it was comedy. It was something light or something silly. Like one of the first things I ever got to do on my own as a solo piece was a pastiche of a guy trying to get over a gate and like collapsing through, like failing to get over the gate like 3 or 4 times. And I remember like that sort of people were, I think I was like 14 at the time, and people were just like, wow, you're doing this slapstick, you know what I mean? It was like, I found myself really liking the physical. Yeah. I still like doing physical comedy whenever I can. I like gesticulating, as you can see. Yeah. I like gesticulating and doing stuff. There was a show at uni. I did, because I'm white and British, I did Gilbert and Sullivan operettas.
Of course, yeah.
At uni. And I did one called Iolanthe, which is basically fairies controlling Parliament, which sounds like a perfect, utopia of a world. Yeah. And I played the head of the House of Lords. I played the Lord Chancellor. And there was a scene where I'm kind of in a delirium. It's the middle of the night. I'm in my pajamas. There's a bit of a delirium. And then my sort of 2 lackeys find me and comfort me, basically. And we come up with a plan to kind of make everything better because we're kind of turning from heel to face. And we have this song, and the director was basically like, right, skip up and down the stage. And we were kind of on a concrete floor. Skip up and down the stage. I'm in my socks. And I realize it's quite slippy. I just go, I can use this. Rather than being fearful, I'm like, I can use this. So when we finally work on the concrete floor, these guys are in like full on, like MP suits and sharp shoes. And I'm like, we're bouncing along and prancing back and forth. And then when it gets to a point where we stopped, I deliberately did kind of like a fake slip where I just sort of like did like a sort of almost like a pirouette and just sort of, I'm good at landing on my own feet. So I was kind of like, I know how to do this. And I didn't tell the director. And we did it in the dress rehearsal. And I slipped. And I saw in the corner of my eye, like the director just go, like, it's like as if like, get the medics, he's going to break his skull. And he did consult me surreptitiously afterwards and went, that's fine. Just be careful, please. And there was at least one night where I slipped and went, well, I'm dying, because like, I'm dead, because there was one night where I slipped and I just felt it's a little too far. I was like, well, I'm dead. Life flashed before the eyes, and I mercifully found my feet.
Oh, fucking amazing. Yeah,
that kind of stuff I really love doing, just pushing the boundaries on like how much can I mess with the stage or just jump about, and be a child. Yeah, because I'm still a child.
I've kind of grown past that bit. Not like I've grown out of enjoying it, but I've grown past the point where I can just throw myself into solid objects without just like recoiling.
Yeah, I haven't done it properly in a while. So I haven't done it properly in a while, so I suspect that like the next time I do it, I'll realize it hurts. Exactly. But I'm probably going to be. This might be a mistake in hindsight, but I'd like to do it again. Famous last words, but why not at this stage?
We'll see. Yeah. Like you never really care as a teenager. You just like, or even as a child, like you just don't like. I remember doing my like BTEC performing arts stuff. I'd always just like anything physical. I'd always just throw myself into it. Which like in hindsight wasn't like. It didn't look good. It wasn't well choreographed or anything, but I was. But I'd put all the energy into it. Yeah.
There we go. Well, even in my stand-up now, like the big thing that I want to do is kind of like push myself in how much I can use my energy. Like the stand-up I do in my character as Mitch Merkabah, the wrestling manager turned like positivity guru. Like a lot of that is me basically, using all my energy to just yell at the audience about the positivity they can have, and being as like aggressively like in their face about it as possible. And that level, I find myself like really, every time I've done it, I've come off stage and just like felt like, well, I feel like I'm going to collapse, because I'm just like I used up so much energy. I stored so much energy and nervous energy, because I'm always nervous before I do anything. Just letting it out.
Is that just how you get over stage nerves, just by being constantly nervous of doing any task? So it just feels like
pretty much everything. I'm nervous now.
I could be going on stage, or I could just be like, need to
putting
go to
on my shoes in the morning.
Yeah,
I put on my shoes in the morning. I'm never fearful. Like I can do the pratfalls and stuff like that.
Always
but
nervous, never fearful.
Always nervous, never fearful. I think that's the best way of putting it. Yeah,
I like that. That's quite a good motto. I'm a big fan of that. So okay, fast forwarding to when the first time you did sort of stand-up itself, was that in Berlin, or had you done any beforehand?
It was, and it was Mitch Merkaba.
Yeah.
It was the character, because it was kind of brought on by a program that they had at the Comedy Cafe. They had like a what they called a character stand-up night, which was I think it's called Stuarts, I think, and it was kind of like a network with us and build a character, and then we'll give you like a 10-minute set of just being the character and trying to make some laughs. And I had this idea for a while, because when I left uni and I started working, I just started ended up getting, I think I got so fearful of the future that I was just like, I regressed into a nostalgic husk, and I just started looking at all the stuff I enjoyed as a kid. And one of that was pro wrestling. And I just sort of out of interest, I was just like, oh, there's some podcasts from people who are in pro wrestling. I wonder what it was like. And I got hooked, because I was just like, this is the creation of the characters and the way it's done. Like I said, I'm doing physical comedy and doing a lot of slapstick. I love the way that's choreographed, that's improvised. I see it as parallel to what I've done before. Like,
it is, absolutely is.
I found myself becoming a closet wrestling fan as a result. Like I just really love finding out about it. And, I follow a few things now. I just, before the stream, I checked the results for the New Japan tournament that's going on, and just who's in the final. Because I was, even though it's staged and fake, I'm still like, who's in the final? Spoiler, my guy didn't get in, so I'm only slightly bitter. But anyway, I developed the character because I like the idea of doing a sort of surly, old school, southern, wrestling manager thing. Because I'm not a wrestler. I've not got the physique for it. I'm a skin and bone individual. So I thought, well, I can't be a wrestler. But there are these old managers like Jim Cornette and like Jimmy Hart and people like that. And they jumped out at me like I could probably do something with that. And then I just thought, well, what's funny? What is the big thing about a manager? Well, they're usually the bad guy, and they usually are excessively persuasive at you making the bad guy, basically making you hate them. They're really, really good at that. So I thought, well, why don't we have the manager persuade you to do something else? So I worked through a few different things, like maybe do the whole evangelist thing and go full throttle with that. But then I thought, no, let's actually do something that's funny because it's positive rather than because it's negative, because it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So he's doing bad guy tactics to make you feel good about yourself.
I really
know what
like
I mean?
that,
That's kind of he's the mouth of motivation, and that he motivates you through your hatred of him.
That's it.
It's basically the way he does it. He'll insult the hell out of you and make you go, no, fuck you. I can be better than you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I've sort of made it, where
absolutely.
And him getting things wrong about the city or things like that, like you do in wrestling. I did when I last did it in Sheffield. I did like I got an audience interaction. I got things that they're proud of in Sheffield, and then I tried to make it like do a weird thing with this item to show you're proud. So like someone said Henderson's relish, which is basically like Worcestershire sauce. Worcester sauce. It's like Worcester sauce in Sheffield. It's the nectar of Sheffield. Like you don't go to Sheffield without trying something with Hendo's relish on it. But I made a joke of like, the next time you go down south, because I'm making Mitch Merkabah kind of a northern.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
focusing on the north of England because the north of England is famous for being grim, and he thinks he can change that. Yeah, I said the next time you go down south and you see someone who is miserable, you show your pride in Sheffield by rolling down your windows, keeping some Hendo's relish in your car, roll down your windows and hurl a bottle at the person you see. And just stuff like that, you know.
Amazing, yeah.
Gags like that where it's like, and working with the audience, because sometimes the audience comes up with great stuff. When I did that and said, what are you proud of in Sheffield? Now, and Johnny, you know, like what Sheffield is quite famous for its steel industry.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the famous steel mills and stuff like that. And the very first thing I got from an audience member when I said, so what are you proud of in Sheffield? Someone just yelled out, we've got shit steel. And I'm just like, wow, be proud of the shit steel.
Yeah.
No, why not? Like, so I made that kind of a motif now, is like Sheffield and it's shit steel. If I go elsewhere, that's my example. Sheffield is proud of its shit steel. So you can be proud of your shit, whatever you have.
I really like that. I especially like because I watched a few of the recent videos you made on the profile, and one of the things I really like about it, and one of the things that I kind of want to, one of the things that like I want to bring into like the values of Blizzard and my own stand-up is that kind of like just aggressive positivity. I really connect to that, and like I really like I'm kind of, because I think like a lot of people I went through like the kind of like sort of teenage early adult kind of like nihilism and just kind of cynical comedy, and there's still some of that in me to a degree, but I realize what's more fun is just being just really passionately just like into things and encouraging, and that's one thing. Like the character has this sincerity to it that even in the ridiculous things you can tell he means well, and he's just like trying to put something nice into the world, and I really like that.
Yeah, because I think the big thing that I thought when I found a love for character comedy, and I always kind of have, because you know the go-to in Britain for well-known beloved character comedy is Alan Partridge. And it's still a fantastic character. Steve Coogan is just a genius with that character.
Oh, he is.
But I think the way I kind of look at it is that is a wonderfully well-written, cynical, unlikable human being. Yeah. And it's been done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's been done. I can't top Alan Partridge for being a shameless, nihilistic failure of a character. I kind of wanted to create a character who, if he is a failure, he doesn't care. He just keeps going. In a way that doesn't, like, his flaws are really that he just doesn't know when to stop. You know what I mean? Like his flaws are basically that he's so in his own world. And wrestling is very insular. So that was the other thing I realized is, like, the people in the wrestling business are so into it, like that the outside world seems, it really looks alien to them. So I had that element of, like, he sees everything through a wrestling lens, and that's kind of his flaw, is like everything is a face or a heel. Everything has, like, no one gets angry, they get heat. You know what I mean? Like, and stuff like that, like just using all the terminology and just making it as if, like, he just lives in this parallel universe where everyone thinks like they're a wrestler or a wrestling manager, and he's somehow trying to make that work in a world where, just people are people, and that's kind of the floor I want to go with, rather than they are excessively, you want to see them fail. Not even sometimes you want that, but I kind of want Mitch to succeed now. I've always found, and I think I quite like gunning for that.
I think we've also just had a lot of those characters over like the last few decades. I feel like it's nice having, like, I think particularly in like the kind of 80s and 90s, that was a huge, like in pretty much in every sitcom, anyone doing character comedy. Obviously Alan Partridge, the pub landlord to an extent as well, I think is a similar kind of thing, obviously from a different kind of end of the spectrum.
I like doing characters out of their element, but not in a narcissistic way, not in a way where they sort of brought it on themselves. I like playing characters or creating comedy where it's like they don't know, like, where they're in, like they've sort of been thrust into it
Yeah.
rather than they've brought it on themselves. I had another idea for a character which I wanted to bring somewhere, but the pandemic happened, so it kind of stopped my development of it, which was basically like a BBC announcer, or like a kind of a standard RP, well-spoken radio personality or something like that, who is basically in a kind of quantum leap entanglement and is going like through, ends up just going like, has seen like multiple dimensions and is just sort of like so like bewildered and I guess traumatized by the affair. And I just have the idea of like him just appearing on stage and just trying to feel out the audience, and just like trying to figure out what dimension he's in, like, and that's the set. Like, I just had this idea of him just coming out and just
that
going,
sounds like a
"Hello,
lot of fun, actually.
it's lovely to be here. Yes, it's nice to see so many humans here. Yes, I'm rather pleased by that." And it was kind of stuff like that, kind of inspired by someone in Berlin called Dan Stern, who did a lot of surreal, ridiculous, comedy. Like Dan Stern jumped out. Like, that was an inspiration for me. It was just him doing this surreal, not really telling jokes, but just asking the audience for help. And it was so funny. Just watching this kind of like bizarre character just sort of like have complete like obliviousness to the real world was just so entertaining. And that kind of thing I quite like the idea of a character that's in their own world and having to experience the real world, and blundering through it. Because like, don't we all blunder through life?
We all do.
I definitely do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's nice and refreshing to see. Like, I think we've got more of it now, but certainly, so kind of growing up around the where like every show was just trying to be another It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's kind of nice to have character-driven comedy that isn't just about like horrible like narcissists.
I think the big thing to say is like, it's not to belittle what's come before,
no,
and
absolutely
not to say,
not.
"Oh no, we don't do that anymore," but just sort of like
just times
know
are different.
that things have progressed. You won't write another Blackadder. You won't. People always say that there's
I mean,
no
you say that
Blackadder
like
anymore. No, because you wouldn't
Upstart
write
Crow
it.
is definitely a spiritual successor to Blackadder.
Upstart Crow is that's a really good example. But again, even that's different enough.
It is. Yeah.
I recently I don't watch a lot of terrestrial TV anymore, but I recently watched The Cleaner, which also has David Mitchell in it.
Is that the Greg Davis one?
The Greg Davis one with the crime scene cleaner.
Yeah,
and I recommend it. I watched the one with David Mitchell as the guest, and I recommend it. It's great. It's delightful. That's the best word for it. It's delightful comedy. It's black humor at times, but I love character comedy, and they're characters. They're characters be themselves, and like, I'd recommend The Cleaner 100%.
Yeah.
I aspire to do something like that, with my characters.
It's really awesome. I'll come back to that actually in a little bit. But
cool.
First, I wanted to ask: was there like a difference in your approach from? So, like, obviously, the character was born in Berlin. When you moved back to the UK, did you have to change that at all, or did it translate fairly easily?
It did a little bit. Like, I found myself wanting to play to the audience a bit more than I did in Berlin. And I think it is the familiarity of the language, because it's an international audience in Berlin. And so I think I was playing it safe with a lot of things when I did it there. And then coming over here, and also I was using a lot more kind of like gimmicks, and I had prop ideas and stuff like that, and going into the UK I kind of, and doing it on stand-up sets, doing it like on stand-up nights where I was the only guy dressed in a silver suit, like putting on a terrible American accent. I kind of realized that no, I just really just need to be the character and talk to the audience. I don't need I don't need to do the prop stuff. I streamlined it to the point where it was just Merkaba interacting with the audience, and I sort of learned then, like, when I started, my improv kicked in at points, and now I would say at least half of each set is ad-libbed. Like, at least half of the set is
amazing, yeah,
not prepared, or at least, you know, I have basic ideas of what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then I set it out. And a lot of it is based on the audience interaction. It's what are you proud of in the city? Give me a problem and I'll do a promo to shoo the problem away, like stuff like that, rather than trying to write excessive amounts and have it, you know, go point by point.
I think that's one of the hallmarks of a great character is when you can just embody it like that and react to things in the room as the character. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, I try and use the Facebook videos for that a little bit, where I come up with a premise and then I just give myself a minute to rally off about it, you know, like rather than write a script for it, you know. Because I just find it, my improv roots just kick in, you know, my improv roots just kick in. I worry too much about a written script a lot of the time. Like when
you're always kind of second guessing it.
Exactly. If it's written by someone else, I feel fine saying it, you know.
Yeah.
The only person I'll criticize excessively is my own writing. So I've given up like trying to write jokes in a typical way. I sometimes do. I do stand up as myself as well occasionally, and that's more structured. I put more, you know, actual written jokes into that. But like I've given up trying to just revolve around them. I now sort of come up with the premise and then have the jokes there in case they fit what's going on. You know what I mean? So if I'm talking about something ridiculous as Mitch, and the light switch on my brain just goes, oh, remember this bit you wrote? And then that will come out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, trying to remember excessive amounts at the same time.
Yeah. This is the thing I found after kind of after doing more Twitch and stream shows is my senses for that have been a lot better. I've been a lot less concerned about, I guess it's probably because I've been doing more collaborative and kind of bouncing off each other stuff rather than just solo stand-up. I've just felt a lot better kind of going on stage with like a broad idea of which topics I want to cover, but not necessarily having to meticulously rehearse in the same way that I used to. And I'm feeling a lot more comfortable just going off on stage like that. And I think that's been really helpful for that. We've had a question. Go on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Well, yeah, you go.
I was just going to say it depends on. It obviously might depend on the audience. I've been quite blessed with the audiences I've got because they've all been engaged. There was only one sort of awkward moment that I had, and it was in Clown, which is about 20 miles south of Sheffield. And there was I did my Give Me a Problem and I'll Solve It. And I went to a guy in the front row, and he just didn't know what to say. And his girlfriend stitched him up, so that made it work. Whereas like his problem is that he's hungover, was what she said. And then I just went into Merkaba and just went, my friend, that is not a problem. That is an opportunity right there. And I just played that. Biggest laugh of the night. So I'm like, there you go.
That's
I don't
amazing.
need to write jokes. Apparently that was the biggest laugh.
Yeah.
So even the jokes about England being the bad guys in Europe, you know, which got a laugh, but like, you know, it could have been worse, I guess. But
yeah. That's amazing. We've just had a question from Safi. He said, have you ever done a character you regretted creating or not?
Well, it wasn't really a character I created, but and I don't say regret. I just say like I would like to you know, go back and do it slightly differently.
Sure.
And this was actually in musical theatre. My university theatre group did a musical called Jack and the Space Vixens.
Yes.
Which the title alone says it all. If you know the show, then you'll know what it's about. But there was the character I played was this kind of walking sort of like you know, mad German professor with a plastic fetish. And it was a show that was very raunchy, a lot of double entendres, and I love doing that. But I feel like I would like to do it now. I'd like to kind of do the same thing now, but with the more experience of ad-libbing.
Sure.
I feel like I stalled and I just went for the obvious, you know, crude stuff. And I feel like I could be a lot more subtle with it now. And I feel like I could do a lot more with it now.
Yeah.
Because there were bits there that I just think I just went for, you know, well, it's a crude show, so I've got to play the crude jokes. And I think there were a couple of gags that I'm like, I wouldn't do that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back and you know, do something like that again, but with the hindsight and the knowledge of like what I've learned over the last 4 years, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's one of those things that you're always gonna if you're looking back on your old work and thinking about how you're gonna do that differently and better. It's a cliche, but it is silent progression as an artist. I think
definitely.
I don't know if
Well, I mean that one of the first things I ever did writing wise for people was my friends and I were like we were the awkward Nintendo fans in the corner of the cafeteria at school, and we always played that, and we wanted to write like a sort of early YouTube animated show that that was basically like every other animated show from 2009. You know what I mean? That kind of humor.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with one of those friends about a year ago, like as the pandemic was in full force, and I just thought I'd get back in touch with them. And we had a reminisce, and we're like, oh, do you remember we used to write those Nintendo-based like show scripts? And I was like, yeah. And we both sort of got the same recognition of what we'd written and went, wouldn't do that today, would we? Yeah, no, because there's a lot of stuff in there that like we get cancelled for now if we're talking about that term. I don't really believe in the concept of cancelling. I don't think it's really
it's the kind of thing that wouldn't have aged well if you'd made it.
It's a kind of thing that, let's just say, I'm glad I did it. It died with the other computer. Although there's other stuff in there that I've kept in my brain and gone, this could still work somewhere else. You know what I mean? But there's definitely uses of certain words and certain contexts and targets of humor that I wouldn't do now.
Yeah,
but that's the thing, you grow and you learn.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The stuff I found funny in 2009 is definitely not the same. Like for large parts, are not the same thing that I would find funny now. And luckily, I wasn't really writing in 2009, so that's something at least. Okay, we've been talking for quite a bit, so I'm going to do a few quick fire questions now. Just to cover a few things that we may have touched upon, but I may want to go a bit deeper into.
Go for it.
So first of all, do you prefer working collaboratively or individually?
Ooh, I guess it depends. Like, I love working collaboratively with people that I know, and I love bringing people together and trying to do stuff with multiple people. But at the same time, there are moments and there are days where I just literally want to just sit and do my own stuff and write my own stuff and go out and be the center of attention,
Yeah.
So I guess it does depend on the day. And I feel like I enjoy both. Yeah, I like both, depending on what the circumstances and what we're doing. Like I'd feel much more comfortable doing live stream stuff with other people than solo.
Yeah.
For example,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good answer. What motivates you as a performer?
I guess the cliche is the response from the audience, but no, I think I just really like creating things and then bringing them to other people. I just really like the idea that we as people can do that, and I love just exchanging ideas with people. So I love showing my stuff and then getting other people to show me their stuff. So I guess that's the thing that drives me to continue performing, is that feeling of I've made this thing and I want to see how people react to it. Even if they're were bowled over by it, or they don't see it as like the greatest thing ever, like they reacted to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that to me, just my partner's a perfect audience sometimes. She'll listen to a joke and she'll read my scripts, and sometimes she'll be like, yeah, no, don't. Like, but even then, that's good, Like, even then, that's good. Like, well, 9 times out of 10, the criticism I get from her is, that's complicated. You've overthought that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But that's the thing. It's always good to kind of get someone else's response to something. It's like the old improv, yes and.
Yeah, it's definitely useful having that feedback as well. I think it's definitely. Very definitely going to over-explaining a lot of my concepts when I initially write things, and then like a routine that will be like a page and a half when I first write it will be like 2 paragraphs by the time I actually use it. And I was just there were like no jokes in like an entire page.
Yeah. That's how I can talk for an hour now. I just don't shut up, and I just end up adding layer on layer and layer and layer. So
that's fine. No, absolutely. This is what we like here. And what are your goals for to say like the next 5 years or so?
In terms of life, in terms of life to stay employed. In terms of performance, I guess, to really just keep growing the thing I'm doing. And, you know, the stand-up, the comedy work, and the stuff I'm writing, I really want to just see where it goes. In 5 years, if I were to say what would I do in 5 years, I think really have, like, you know, these things going regularly and having them scheduled so that I literally got them as part of my routine rather than just a pastime that I'm doing in the background. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean a job, but it definitely means, like, you know, treating it with that, like, sincerity of this is what I do, you know.
Yeah.
And I hope to keep going and push for that now, you know, now that we're in this state of affairs that we're in the world. Like, I feel like it's now or never has been my motto going forward for this.
Absolutely, yeah. I was definitely in a position where before I got a full-time position where I'm working now, I was definitely at a point of being like, okay, at the end of my contract, I might just try, say, like a few months, just try and like really build the Twitch stuff together and try and really, like, put my mind on because I had a little bit saved up and that kind of thing. Just spend a few months really trying to push this for a bit before I even think of looking for another job. Just see how it goes, because it is a thing that I struggle to do, balancing with other work. Like, I can just about do it, but then, like, I don't really have much time for socializing or any of the things to kind of keep me sane and human.
Exactly.
And I think it's very easy as a creative to just get yourself bogged down in being like, okay, like, I've got free time, how can I use this productively, rather than just like, I've worked for like 40 hours this week, maybe I can just have an evening where I just hang out with my partner, watch shit TV, and don't worry about, like, all these project ideas I've got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to do that more and more. You know, and it's definitely boosted me for the things I've been working on.
Yeah,
you know, to just sort of try and get that balance.
Yeah, and it's been a good thing about working from home as well, because I'm not as tired all the time from commuting, for one thing, and then also just it's I don't know. Yeah, it's
I also have a loathing for the common man. So like, avoiding the commute is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got on for about an hour, but I wanted to talk a bit about your I think it's your more recent project. So the Keo and Maxi stuff on Spotify. So where did that come from? What was the idea behind that?
So the idea was something that I sort of came up with in uni, and it was just a fun idea. And it kind of, I've said it like on another interview, but it was basically like, I think it was me coming to terms with my mortality a little bit, where it's just a case of, like, you know, realizing, you know, the limitations that I had. And I just sort of came up with, well, what if there was a world where there are no limitations? What if there was an everything world? And that sort of became the kernel of an idea to just sort of, let's explore that. How would that work? You know what I mean? Like, what could characters do there? What could characters who aren't from there? If it's infinity, what about if there's a place outside infinity that these people have come from, that they can explore it, you know? And that sort of became the show, because it's Keo and Maxi's adventures in everything centers around the two characters, Keo and Maxi, who ended up on this everything planet. And it's basically it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and like a Dr. Seuss world, is how I describe it to people.
I was going to say, yeah, it's definitely very Douglas Adams.
There's definite inspiration. Yeah, there's definite inspiration from Douglas Adams. A couple of people who listened to it from me have picked up on that, and a few other inspirations as well. So yeah, I think I wear the references on my sleeve a little bit with it. But yeah, I mean, the idea was born from that idea of, like, well, why don't we explore this idea of an everything planet and make it as silly and as ridiculous as possible, you know? And so I don't really think about worrying about having this overarching lore of a story. I literally just want to make up stuff for it and then fit it in, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of I don't have like a rule book for the planet as such. Like, the rules are made up as I go along, and
that's a really cool
and
approach to writing. See, I find that would get far too overwhelming, but in some ways maybe it centers you a bit more, because you're not quite as bogged down with I guess
Well,
tying everything up. It's just
it took me forever to kind of get to that stage. Like, as I said, I came over there at uni, and I think I was just like so bogged down in, well, how does this work? And I think I got to the point where I was just like, who cares? It's a planet where everything exists. Have fun with it, you know? And I think that was the thing that catalyzed me. And then I wasn't sure what format to put it in. And then I started discovering, alongside the wrestling podcasts, I started finding improvised podcasts like Hello from the Magic Tavern and not just improvised, but like script Welcome to Night Vale and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, that was another one I was going to say.
Welcome to the Night Vale, Hello from the Magic Tavern, Mission to Zix, shows like that where it is characters going through something, and like that kind of, again, it centers on characters more than it centers on the world now. I've started developing this whole thing of like, who are Q and Maxi, and the guide that they have, who's basically Willy Wonka without the charm, you know, Willy Wonka without the innocence, you know, and like, you know, who are these characters? Where have they come from? What were their pasts? What are they do? How are they where they are? And you know, that's become the discussion rather than what is the planet of everything. You know, in my goal for the show is learn about these characters. The world of everything is the backdrop where we can just put in all the ridiculous, you know, silly things that are in. The latest episode was about a woman who lives on a mountaintop who makes things out of origami, and they become the thing. Like she crafts a massive origami bird of prey, and it becomes a living bird of prey.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it's just like, it makes no sense, but it's the world, you know, and we fit that into the character's journey and what they do, and how they react to it explains a bit more about them. And you know what I mean? It's sort of that more than it's, you know, like a big lore thing. If you're going into it looking for Lord of the Rings, you're not going to find it.
No.
Basically, because I can't be arsed writing Lord of the Rings.
No, yeah.
I've not got the free time or the free headspace that Tolkien had.
No, absolutely. This is what stresses me out with Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I respect anyone who can like create their own campaigns on like a weekly basis.
I do want to do that. So I'd love to.
Oh yeah.
Try and put a campaign together. I have an idea, but I would love to try it at one point. But like, this seems like a. Yeah, I respect anyone who does that.
Oh,
because
absolutely,
that's such good storytelling, such interesting craft work.
And for like stories that like only like maybe 5 or 6 people are going to experience ever, because like
exactly,
like,
you know,
I
have good memories of
unless
the
you're going to start selling
campaigns
them in like books or whatever, like they're not.
Yeah, I have good memories of the D&D campaigns I've done over the pandemic. Good fond memories of them because of the way the DM handled it, or the GM, because we weren't playing D&D, we were playing other RPG games.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Cool. I've put the links to Kira and Maxi in the chat if anyone wants to go check them out. I'm definitely going to be listening to more of them.
I will I'd be you know, really cringy and just shout out the main actors who are in that. Rowan M. Shergold, Carpenter Lockwood, and Ben Swithin, who are all just delights. I love them to bits, and they are so hungry for the show. It feels like they just, every time we record, like they're just so energetic and enthusiastic, and I just love them to bits, and I'm so grateful that they want to do this show and they've given life to these characters. You know, they are the characters.
Yeah,
I hear their voices when I write, you know?
Yeah, and this is another thing I was saying before we went live. It sounds really well produced. Like it doesn't sound like when this eventually goes on Spotify, it's gonna sound like some dickhead who's just recorded it off of Zoom. Whereas I just it's like
I refer to it as pandemic quality at the moment, just because we are all recording remotely with different materials. But I try my best to kind of, you know, center it. And I'm very green on editing software, so like this has been a massive learning curve for me. But you know, I put my best foot forward with it, and I just wanted to play with it and just go, well, what can I do? What weird noises can I make in a world of everything? You know.
And this, I think, the more you do, the better you get with it. Like, it's very easy to be overwhelmed by editing software, whether it's video or audio. But the more you do it, the more you experiment, the more you can.
Exactly.
Absolutely, it is the old thing of just like the more you do it, the better you get. I've been video editing for years now. I still find it really stressful at times, but I also look back at what I was making like 5 years ago. I mean, I know, yeah, I can do much better stuff now. This is really cool. Right, okay, so final question. Well, actually, a couple final questions. Firstly, have you got any projects or anything coming up that you want to plug?
Well, other than the next episode of Kiwa Maxi, fourth episode is in production now. In terms of post-production, it's in now. It's going to be called Cry Everything. Every episode has the word everything in the title. It's called Cry Everything, and it basically involves all the characters getting lost on a mountainside.
Okay.
And cool having an annoying character blaring in their ear. Not played by me, surprisingly. Played by my good friend Osnak Hartmoon. So that's coming out on Spotify on the page very, very soon. And yeah, like I am hoping to do some more stuff with Mitch on the Facebook page and live. It will be sort of northern centric, so keep an eye out in Sheffield, and I hopefully will be doing something in Manchester in December. So keep an eye out for that. Just follow the page. There'll definitely be notes for that going forward. But yeah, just that's really, I'm focusing on those two things at the moment: Mitch and building his Grim No More Free the North campaign, and the continuing adventures of Kiwa Maxi.
Wonderful. Okay, and final question: what advice would you give to a younger you in terms of performance?
In terms of performance, I guess the thing I would tell myself is to trust my instincts more. That there is an audience for the stuff I do, because I've always been into the niche stuff, and I've always found my writing has always been not necessarily niche, but just has always had that aspect of like the uncertainty as to who's going to get it. You know what I mean? Like I never know what my target audience is when I write, really. And I think I just tell my past self, like, don't worry about the target audience. They'll find you. If you just keep doing what you're doing, you will find at least some people who find it worth their time. And I'm glad I have now. I'm 100% blessed that I found at least a kernel of this society that likes the weird things that I've come up with.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's a really nice note to leave on. Thank you very much. So we haven't got any more of the live chats booked in yet. I've got a couple I've recorded like last year that I'll be uploading at some point over the next few weeks. One with Tom Shaw and Quenby Harley, who are also on the Broadcast Avalanche. So yeah, these were recorded in like 2020, so they are possibly a bit dated now. But we'll see when I go through it. I usually edit out any of the really dated references. And we've got our next Broadcast Avalanche show on Monday, where we're joined by, see if I can remember, we've got Khaled Winter and Tom B, team captains. We've also got Laura Monmouth, Annie McIntosh, Richard Stott, and Eddie Hurst. That's it. I remember everyone. So that is on the 25th. And I believe you can also... so we had our first live show back on the 4th, which we streamed on Twitch on the 11th. That is still available to watch until the 25th. So if you've not seen it already, you can still watch it on this page. So make sure you do that, because once it's gone, it will be gone forever. We're not going to be uploading it in full anywhere. So have a look if you haven't already. Wonderful. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Stuart. And I will see you all next stream. I need to find the end stream button. Okay, bye-bye.